From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Tuesday, April the 13th, 2021. The State of Israel came to a standstill this evening to remember its fallen soldiers and victims of terror, marking the beginning of Yom HaZikaron, Israel's Memorial Day. 23,928 have fallen in defense of the Jewish state to date, including 112 since last Memorial Day. Of them, 43 were IDF soldiers, police officers, and civilians, and 69 were disabled veterans who passed away due to complications of injuries sustained during their service. The commemorations began earlier today at the Yad Labanim Center in Jerusalem with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as Speaker of the Knesset Yariv Levin and Chief Justice Esther Chayut among the honorees, who joined the bereaved families at the annual ceremony. Tonight's siren was followed by the state ceremony at the Western Wall in Jerusalem's Old City, with additional public memorials around the country being held tonight and tomorrow. And here on JBS, we will replay a siren for Yom HaZikaron at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight. In other news, reports today that an Israeli-owned ship was hit in the Persian Gulf, the third incident of its kind in the last few months. Israel's Channel 12 News cited sources, including from Lebanon, that an Iranian missile fired towards the ship said to be the Hyperion, which flies under the flag of the Bahamas but is Israeli-owned. The missile apparently causing minor damage. The ship was reportedly located close to the coast of the United Arab Emirate of Fujairah at the time. And amidst tensions with Iran, the White House said that National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan led a virtual meeting today of the USIsrael Strategic Consultative Group, part of ongoing bilateral consultations on security issues of vital importance to the two countries. The statement said officials consulted in detail on opportunities to promote stability and security in the face of shared regional threats and challenges. Mr. Sullivan, it said, reaffirmed the Biden-Harris administration's unwavering commitment to Israel's security and to ensuring that Iran will never obtain a nuclear weapon, adding that Sullivan warmly invited his Israeli counterpart, Meir Ben-Shabbat, to visit Washington before the end of this month for follow-up consultations. With the number of coronavirus cases low and the number of vaccinated high in Israel, the country's health ministry and tourism ministry released a joint statement today saying that a limited number of vaccinated tourists will be allowed to enter Israel in organized groups for the first time since the start of the pandemic. Beginning on May the 23rd, they will be required to take a COVID test before departing as well as upon arriving in Israel. And with the beginning of Yom HaZikaron this evening, we have special programming here on JBS for tonight, Tuesday, April the 13th, including at 8 o'clock an in-depth look at the history of the Israeli-Arab conflict from 1880 to 2015. At 9, Mark Golub sits down with Murray Greenfield, who shares the story of the historic Aliyah Bet on L'chaim. At 10, Colonel Richard Kemp describes the IDF's uniquely moral combat rules of engagement. At 10:30, a look at the film Above and Beyond. And coming up next, Alan Dershowitz looks at the regulation of social media on The Der Show. That's followed by From the Aleph Bet. We end our newscast tonight with the passing of prominent Jewish leader and activist Izzy Lieberman. Lieberman played a major role in the fight to free Soviet Jewry, referred to by many as a fearless advocate in that struggle. He led the Executive Council of Australian Jewry for almost 2 decades and later served on the governing board of the World Jewish Congress, remaining its honorary vice president until his death. Liebler was also a longtime columnist for the Jerusalem Post and Israel Hayom. Izzy Lieberman died today at the age of 86 and was laid to rest in Jerusalem. Before becoming ill, Liebler was a frequent guest on JBS.
Because without Israel, I shudder what Jewish life would be. Israel is the insurance policy for Jews all over the world. And Israel, despite its crappy politicians, Israel is a great country and developing magnificently on so many levels. You have to walk in the streets and see what's going on and feel the vibrancy of the culture. And, you know, and Israelis moan and are the greatest masochists in the world. But, you know, they're amongst the happiest people in the world. When you take the polls, Israel is one of the happiest people in the world because you're part of a society which, with all its weaknesses, is developing. And it's a miracle. It's the greatest miracle of our times. And that's kind of, you've got to keep reminding ourselves of that when we see all the terrible things going on around the world against us.
JBS President Rabbi Mark Golub mourned Izzy Lieberman's passing today, saying the Jewish world has lost a giant in the passing of Izzy Lieberman. He was a fierce defender of Jews in need throughout the world, beginning with his pioneering work in the Russian Jewry movement. Izzy was a man of the highest integrity and would stand up for Jewish interests, even if it meant taking on the Jewish establishment in Israel and in America. And in his later years, from his beautiful home in Jerusalem, Izzy would write the most insightful columns on both Israeli life and on the relationship between American Jewry and Israel. Izzy was, in my view, the most brilliant analyst of Jewish life today, and I developed a profound relationship with Izzy and his lovely wife, Naomi. My wife Ruth and I seen him virtually every time Izzy visited New York. He was as sweet as he was brilliant and had a smile that radiated warmth and affection. I was blessed to have met Izzy Lieberman through JBS, to then get to know him well, to bring members of my chavurah to his home in Jerusalem for dinner, and to feel that he deeply cared about me and the success of JBS. It will take me some time to realize I can no longer call him to share his latest insights. I will mourn Izzy for many days, and I will miss him forever, but he will always remain a presence in my soul. Zecher Tzadik Livracha. May Izzy Lieberman's memory be forever a blessing.